Welcome to John McGivern's Main Streets, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of this popular TV program.
I love it!
You'll hear from John, Main Streets producer and director Lois Maurer, and that episode's content producer, as they share some of their favorite memories from filming and interesting stories that you won't find anywhere else. Today's episode, Fort Wayne, Indiana.
We're talking about our 7th episode of Season 2. It's Fort Wayne, Indiana. We're back with Lance Miller, who was our content producer, and of course, Lois Maurer, who is our executive producer and director. And let's talk about Fort Wayne. Again, what a community full of content that was amazing.
Yeah, and it's one of those towns, it's the second largest town in Indiana, but it's one of those towns where, because the people are so nice and they love their community so much, it has a small town feel, even though it's a really big city.
It was bigger than I thought. I mean, when we went to do the site survey, I was kind of surprised thinking, how are we going to cover this in one episode?
Right.
But I think we did a good job.
And for tourists, actually, everything that we have in the episode, most of the stuff is right downtown and pretty close to one another. So it's really easy for tourists to take a look around.
Yeah.
Fort Wayne. First of all, I was shocked that it was the second largest city in the state. 278,000 people in the town, but a 500,000 in surrounding area.
Correct.
So it was great.
Had you ever been there before?
I had, because Huntington, Indiana is about 35 miles from there, and I was with a religious order that had their house in Huntington, Indiana.
Oh, this is way back.
Way back in the 70s.
Wow.
When I was almost a child.
And almost a priest.
And almost a priest.
Which is a wonderful segue to my favorite thing in Fort Wayne. It's yours, too.
Oh, my Lord, it was your favorite?
Oh, yeah. Easily.
Say it.
It is the Diocesan Museum.
Perfect.
Whew.
Not even Catholic, and he got that. He was so worried he was going to get that wrong all the time.
It's the old chancery of the diocese.
What is chancery?
Chancery is where they do all of their businesses of all the business
it's like the business
of the diocese.
Right. Okay.
So it's right, and they're always connected to either the basilica or the cathedral, and this is right next to the cathedral.
Right.
A great space.
Yeah.
And what they have is a museum of all of the artifacts and a lot of the relics and all of the altar, stuff that happened before Vatican II, which is 62, 63 through 68.
Right.
So all of the stuff that churches were full of. And
they had to get rid of it? Like, okay, so I'm not Catholic. Lance is not Catholic. So why did they just had to get rid of things because of Vatican II?
No, but since Vatican II, what's happened is there's been a lot of merging. Of parishes, so churches closed. What do you do with all of do you do with all of the stuff that it takes to run a parish, a church? So they got it from a lot of that.
So it's basically a museum filled with church stuff.
And our oldest piece is a bowl from the time of Abraham. So we go way back. Here's the handwritten Bible from the 1200s. Here's your nun dolls. These are the old-time habits.
Sure.
With Vatican II, one of the things that kind of went out the window for many of them was the habit.
Right.
Even if you aren't Catholic, your sense of this kind of beauty is a lot of people are just fascinated to see all of that, and it's part of the joy of being able to present it to people.
Unbelievable church stuff.
But the
and
artistry
really was collected by one priest.
Right. Yeah.
Who had an interest and decided it was part of his mission to collect all these things and save them and put them on display so that other Catholics could enjoy them. But what I love is it's not just for Catholics. Like, I went in there and I was completely astounded and so appreciative of the beauty and the art that happens. And their doors are wide open. They're a museum.
Right.
It's just wide open. Come on in.
Never ever have been to a museum like that, and I don't know if there are any.
And again, that's another.
Sorry.
I think that's one of the things I like about working on the show is, like on our show, we've seen a lot of cool old theaters and chocolatiers and microbrews, micropubs. But have you ever seen the Church Museum?
No.
Right?
No.
That's one of the things that makes Fort Wayne unique, which is why we wanted to do it. But to be honest with you, when we first went through the content, the Diocesan Museum was listed as a stand-up.
Right.
Because we were like, well, we could just do this very quickly. But knowing you, John, and knowing your histories, we were like, I guess we have to move this up
Right.
to full-on interview.
Right. And then when I do, so one of the things we do on the show is we do a pre-interview. So we talk to the people who own the businesses that we visit. And when I spoke to the woman, and I knew she would be a fantastic
She's
interview.
great.
And she's just, she's this, I don't know, old spunky lady, and she's got a really great sense of humor about the whole thing. So.
And when we went on the site survey, she took us through all of it.
Yeah.
All of it. And I thought, oh, John's going to love every minute, especially the nun dolls.
The nun dolls.
Want to wear something that's going to support your favorite show? Shop at Main Street Store. Proceeds go to help us get next season into production. So come on, go shopping at mainstreets.tv. I've got to talk about insurance. Are you stressed and overwhelmed with your Medicare Advantage plan options? It's ironic, really. The thing you need the most causes you stress. And it doesn't have to be that way. I chose Network Health because it's not stressful. For 40 years, they've provided health insurance to Medicare members throughout Wisconsin. And their customer service, let me tell you something. It's like nothing I've ever experienced before. So if you're looking for a Medicare Advantage plan and you want to be relieved of stress, you got to call my friends at Network Health. Call 844-277-7174 today. That's 844-277-7174. Don't wait.
What was the biggest place we went to?
Sweetwater.
Sweetwater music.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
What? And who?
Had you guys heard of Sweetwater before? John had, Lance had, right?
Sure. Yeah. Every musician
Yes.
out there has heard of Sweetwater Music. Sweetwater Music is the largest internet seller of musical instruments.
I'm a customer of Sweetwater because I bought my, I have a over-the-ear, it's over 2-ear mic, and I realized that they sell a lot of them, and they sell a lot of them to preachers and priests and religious for homilies. And so I'm not a priest. I'm not a preacher, but I do one-person shows, and it's usually the mics. I get a mic when I get to the venue, and I like to have my own. I like to know what I have, and I know that it's quality, and I got mine from Sweetwater.
The service there is incredible. To be a salesperson, the salespeople are called sales engineers. And in order to be a salesperson there, you have to already be a musician or some sort of sound engineer. And then you have to go through 13 weeks of training. Then there's constant retraining and upgrades. And they're constantly learning about all the new stuff. So the service you get there is top notch.
It's a campus too.
Yeah,
it's
I was going to say,
campus.
it's not just don't think of it as a music instrument store, which
No.
you can buy every instrument imaginable. You can buy every microphone imaginable. You can buy everything that has to do with music or sound.
They have
But it has-
every single pedal that's made, they have there in
Yeah.
stock for you to try out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they also have a huge cafeteria, coffee shop, private lesson rooms, concert spaces.
Recording studios.
Yeah.
For their employees, they have a doctor on staff. They have a
fitness center,
a salon, fitness center,
a salon, right?
and a 500,000 square foot distribution center. We walked in there; it looked like the last scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's how much stuff was in there.
Wow.
Just an immense, massive operation.
Which the place was cool
The interview was cool too.
because the guy was 6 foot.
He was 6'8".
6'8".
So this is the first interview we've done where I was literally like, "Do you mind sitting on a stool?"
Right.
And then John, if you would sit down on
Would
this
you
much
sit
taller
on his lap,
stool.
please?
But otherwise, it was just too distracting. I'm like, I can't have this. But then when you guys went walking around, it was like, okay, well, it's the first episode where you look really short.
Yeah, and I'm not. I'm 6 feet tall.
I know.
Yeah.
So that was fascinating. But the most visually fascinating place for me, Vera Bradley.
Wow.
That was eye-opening. I didn't know Vera Bradley was based in Fort Wayne, first of all.
Right.
And if you go back and think about all of the wallets or purses or bags that you or your mom or your aunt or someone has, they come out of Fort Wayne.
They're all designed there. So
And we got to meet not Vera Bradley.
right.
Her name is Barbara
Bradley Backert.
Backert. That's her married name.
Yes, one of the two founders of the business. Back in the 80s, her and her friend were at an airport, and all the luggage looks the same. And they were having trouble figuring out which piece of luggage was there coming out of the airport carousel. And they said, why does luggage have to look so boring? Why is everything the same color? So they each borrowed $250 to start making fancy bags and luggage. And now they are this incredible, huge company.
No, huge.
I mean, huge. Their distribution center was 400,000 square feet.
It's amazing.
It was absolutely, absolutely amazing.
And I think of them every morning because I have the blanket that they gave us at the foot of our bed. So I fold it so that it just sits on the base of our bed. And they gave 2 floral blankets and 6 or however
4.
4
Gray.
4 gray. For the gray were for the boys. And the
And you've
4 were
got
for
the
the girls.
flowers.
And I was like, I want a floral one.
You traded with Gail, our sound woman. He's like, you would really like this gray one, Gail.
And Gail did. So yeah, but they're great. They're great.
And such.
And
I
they-
didn't know that they had all those designers that make the patterns. They design all of their fabrics and all of their wallpaper. It's just, and it's such cool workspace as well.
One of the crazy things is that the designer we met, what her job was, this is kind of a fascinating job to me. She doesn't design the patterns, but she figures out how to interpret the patterns and put it on things. So if you have a pattern that's florals, it's her job to say, okay, well, I like the sunflower in the bottom left-hand corner of the top of the wallet instead of right in the center. It's her job to figure out exactly how the pattern
Integrates
gets
into
placed.
product.
Into the product, yeah.
Yeah.
I never thought that job would exist, but it makes so much sense now that we've met this woman.
And the fact that we met Barbara, who I don't call Barbara, just so you know, I call Bertie.
Oh, right, Bertie?
That's what her grandkids call her.
Because she said I could.
Yes. And because we were sitting in her restaurant called Bertie's.
Right.
Because we were sitting in her hotel called the Bradley.
When we built the hotel, I said this is going to be the easiest place to staff because you don't have to hire people and say be nice. We hire nice people.
Oh, there we go.
And they say who trains them? Their parents did that, thank you. You know, I mean it's just a nice place. Good
That's a good way to go.
good people.
Congratulations on
Thank
that
you.
as well.
Oh, there was nothing.
Was it?
She was great. She was really great.
I was surprised that it was named after her grandmother.
Vera?
Vera Bradley is
Yeah.
her grandma.
Right.
Instead of naming it Barbara Bradley, she named it after her grandma. And it kind of flows off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we were able to film something at Vera Bradley that they normally wouldn't let people film. Because of the production time, we shoot our episodes in the summer, and then they're released the following spring. So they took us to see the next year's spring line, which normally they wouldn't let people film. But since the episode doesn't come out till spring, they let us film all that stuff. So we got a sneak peek of what's coming out next year, and the patterns are fantastic. The new line for 2023 is fantastic.
Yes, there's a well, no, we won't even
No
talk about
secrets.
the
No
color.
secret.
We
The
can't
color
talk
was
about
great.
the color is fantastic.
We're not-
Okay, wait, move on. Fantastic. What else was fantastic in Fort Wayne that I was completely over the top about? The children's zoo.
The children's zoo.
I've not ever been to a zoo that was so well.
First of all, it's they shouldn't call this a children's zoo because you think of a goat and a lamb and
You think of a petting zoo.
Oh, you
like
think of a petting
this has
zoo, right.
nothing to do with
It's like a family zoo.
it's really cool.
But
It
the
is really
reason they
cool.
call it a children's zoo is because all of the displays were made with children in mind. So instead of having to lift your kid up over the fence and over the rail so they can see the lions, it's all at a kid's view. How do you put that? It's all at, like they can
It was
see
designed. It was designed
Yeah.
from the ground up to be at a kid's point of view. So instead of those bars, they have glass.
Right.
So
right.
any kid of any size can see what's going on. When we talked to the tourism people and they pitched the zoo, I said, zoo is really hard for us to do in our show because they take forever to get through. And they said, oh, that's not a problem. We're on a much smaller footprint. They have figured out a way to have the whole zoo on a smaller footprint. So you don't have to be there all day to get through the whole thing, which is another great thing for families because, you take your kids to the zoo. It's like an all-day affair, and you're exhausted by the end of the day. Not going to this, not when you go to this zoo.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It was lovely. And you got to feed the giraffes up close and personal with those giraffes.
That one seemed very hungry to me. And the other three.
When that tongue came out and wrapped around, the look on your face was like, whoa.
Good to meet you.
Yeah.
Yes,
and on top of everything, the gardens, this place looks like they just dropped a zoo into the middle of a botanical center.
It's beautiful.
The grounds are exquisite. Just amazing.
And that was the initiative of the guy we talked to, who was the executive director. When he got there, he thought children's zoo as well. And when he saw what they had there, and he really wanted to make it look prettier. So a lot of the flowers, a lot of the stuff, it's his initiative, which was great.
I've been to a lot of great zoos around the country, like San Diego Zoo and
Milwaukee's got a great zoo.
Milwaukee's got a great, Brookfield, Illinois has a great zoo.
Yeah.
But this is the prettiest zoo and the most interesting zoo to visit that I've ever seen. Yeah.
I agree. It was a good town, I thought.
I did too. I was surprised by Fort Wayne. I'd never been before. And when you talk about a city of 278,000 people, you get a certain image in your mind. And
I just have one problem with it.
uh-oh.
It was far.
It was far.
It's far, but within 300 miles of your front
Right.
door.
It was less than 300 miles from my
still
front
in.
door in downtown Milwaukee.
That is the truth.
So we had a good time in Fort Wayne, and that is episode number
7. I
seven?
believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lance. You did a great job.
I
We
loved
really
Thank you.
appreciate
You as well.
it. Thanks, Lois.
See you next week.
Curious to find out where John is traveling next? Head over to our website, mainstreets.tv, to learn more. Again, that's mainstreets.tv. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and please leave us a review. It helps more people discover great programming like Main Streets. Look for us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to follow all the action. John McGivern's Main Streets is produced by Plum Media